Hi everyone, today we did get a little bit more of a move down, but if you look closely here, this looks like a bit of a double bottom in here. Found a little bit of legs into the end of the session, following through after hours. Hopefully we get a little bit more follow through on that, but let's take a look at all of the charts and see if we can find any more information for tomorrow. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. In news today, we got a huge GDP revision, way higher than expectations, and that caused bond yields to go quite a bit higher than expected. You can see bond yields more than 2 basis points higher at 4.17. Initial jobless claims also dropped pretty significantly down to 218,000 from 232 expectation. Street estimates at 235. So quite a bit higher, quite a bit lower there. And then GDP numbers, like I mentioned, expectation was 3.3. What we ended up getting was 3.8. So massive move higher on US GDP, quite a bit bigger than expectations. And really, for me, this is super bullish. I think investors should be looking at this number quite a bit closer. Honestly, expected this to push markets higher today, but that's not what we got. We'll see how this gets priced in over the next couple days. Moving over to fear and greed, we did get down to a 52 from a 56, so we're officially in neutral. If this is going to stay a bull trend, this is usually the time where you want to start buying either in neutral or just a little bit into fear. That's about as low as you should expect it to go. If this is going to stay a bull trend, you can see a little bit of fear here on momentum, strength now in regular greed instead of extreme greed. We saw breadth turn down a little bit. Take a look at that later, of course. And then put call ratio spiking up for sure here today. Interesting. VIX also a little bit more elevated, still in neutral there, but definitely more elevated. Safe haven demand turning down a little bit, and then junk bonds starting to turn up just a little bit here on this metric, but still in regular fear. Then moving over to that economic calendar here, you can see continuing jobless claims better than expectation. Durable goods orders also better. Core PCE prices also a little bit better, a little bit higher. Don't love it, but durable goods orders 2.9 versus the expectation of minus 0.3%. Huge number there. GDP, like I talked about, way better than expectations, and then initial jobless claims also better than expectations. So seeing quite a bit of a resurgence in the economy over the last couple days. New home sales were massive. GDP numbers are massive. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the inflation data tomorrow. I'd like to see that come in line or a little bit below. That would be great. And that would really put basically every single metric in line or better than expectations over the last couple days, which should bode well for the stock market over time. Moving over to the charts here, you can see that big wick rejection in the area of the 21 EMA, in the area of that trend line. Momentum flipped to bearish, RSI flipped to bearish, but you can see a little bit of volume coming in, a little bit higher volume than the previous day. And you can see it here on the hourly, like we talked about. Low, double bottom, slightly lower low on the wick, catching a bounce here. Would want to see this rally up and give us either that topping pattern where you get either a double top potentially up to the 666 area, or even a slightly lower high, give you that kind of confirmation. This would be your midpoint, at least in my expectation. Or we get the rally through to a higher high and we get this continuation of trend. Certainly a possibility as well, but one way or the other, I would expect this to go higher here still. And then we'll see what happens after we get that either topping pattern or continuation. Moving over to the Tasty charts here for the SPY, you can see we hit that 89 EMA, held that on a closing basis, hit that lowest ATR band as well. There at 656, touched that level and caught a little bit of a bounce. Little bit of volume, a little more volume than the previous day. Either way, hit those lowest bands, want to see it rally up. Your trailing stop right now on the 4-hour would be 664, so that would be a nice little move here. From current price, 658 or so up to 64. Give you about $6 or so of potential upside, or about a 1% move to that area. If you get the lower high setup, that is going to be more catastrophic, and expect lower lows. If we push through that area and start to drive to higher highs, obviously that means the trend is going to continue and we should stay bullish. So watching for those two things. Either way, looking for a rally up here. Then we'll see what happens in that zone. Moving over to the NASDAQ, same kind of thesis, definitely went a little bit lower. Let's go ahead and extend this out. Looks like we just got a touch there. Yep, perfect touch of that trend line. Came in, tagged it, got a higher low setup, rallied out, pretty powerful rallies out on good volume. Didn't quite go to bearish momentum. Good volume on the daily chart as well. After hours, drifting higher. Everything says this should follow through to the upside, and then we'll see what happens after that. Same kind of thesis overall. Double bottom or higher low setup. 3 days of down move should get a little bit of a bounce, and then we'll see if we either get the double top or a higher high. Could get a lower high, but I don't really expect that. Moving over to the NASDAQ on the Tasty charts, same kind of thesis. As the SPY hit that 89 EMA on the 4-hour chart, hit that lowest ATR band, touched that level and bounced. We're right in that kind of 55 EMA area. It is above it in the after hours. Just want to look at the hourly chart here just for a second. You can see obviously super extended in here. Same as this where you rallied back up into the middle of the range. Still bearish conditions, didn't rally too aggressively to get there. Trailing stop 596.48. I would expect this to get above there. On this rally, we'll see how it goes, but I would expect at least a move to there, if not a little bit higher. Realistically, I would look for closer to that 600 area, and then we'll see what happens after that. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow. Russell did the same thing as everything else, gapped down and fell here on the daily, but hit that 21 EMA, hit the level 238 and bounced. After hours, you can see it's up a little bit more. And if you look at it here on the hourly, you can see the same kind of setup as everything else, right? Came in, double bottomed at the key level, getting a little bit of a rally out. Would like to see this continue up to that 244 area, ultimately at least. I don't know if we'll get that much of a rally, but that is what I'm hoping for. Definitely like the base here. Want to see it rally through. And then looking at the Dow, same kind of thesis as everything else. Gap down, doji, 21 EMA, touch that level. Rallying out after hours up a little bit more. Daily chart still doesn't look super great, but still expecting this to rally out and continue the uptrend at least for now. Moving over to the Mag 7 here. Mag 7 did continue to fall after the little bit of a bounce that we saw yesterday. So a little bit more fall there, down 1.28%. Momentum and RSI both a little bit bearish. Thought we'd get closer to that 21 EMA. But looking at that hourly chart, basically the same as everything else, right? Came into that 200 area, got a bit of a double bottom or a slightly higher low setup, and then we're going to see, does this rally out from there? So far, it seems like it will, and I would expect at least a push into this kind of 370 area. So hopefully get about a percent and a half out of this rally. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple did get the continuation here, still looking for 260, still think we're going to get there. Honestly, should have been watching this one a little closer. Need to put some indicators on this. I think Apple is going to get a bigger move higher here. Nice opportunity on the pullback. Came into that 252 area. I think this is going to go to 260. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish, definitely a little extended here, but continues to look really, really strong. And I think we should touch 260 before anything else happens. And then looking at Microsoft, a little bit of a fall, down about 0.5%, still holding level 506.71. On a closing basis, we were here at 507.03, so still above it. After hours, drifting just a little bit lower, momentum a little bearish. At this point, again, still looking for more sideways choppy action. I don't think this is going to break in either direction. I don't think we're going to get a super cheap Microsoft anytime soon, but I don't think this is going to continue to rally into infinity. So I would expect sideways choppy here on Microsoft. Moving over to Tesla. Tesla did give a lot of that back here, down 4.38%. Really, really wide trading range here between this kind of 414 and 440 area, about a 10% trading range. Continues to move quite a lot. Momentum says this should be a little bearish. RSI says this should be a little bearish, but I wouldn't go bearish until 414.50 goes. If that goes, you could look for 384 and that 21 EMA VWAP all in there around that kind of 385 area. But for now, that's continuing to hold after hours. Up just a little. As long as this holds, I think you could trade looking for this kind of 480 area. But if this breaks, like I said, definitely look for a little bit more pullback. I don't really think we're going to get a change in structure. This still looks super bullish, but in the short term, I could see a little bit more pullback there. And then looking at NVDA, did catch a little bit of a bounce. It's right on top of this consolidation of EMAs and SMAs. That is a little bit concerning, right? So if it's going to break down, you need this consolidation. You have the opportunity for a bit of a sell there. Really need it to get above 183.97, basically 184 if we're going to go a little bit more bullish. If this continues to hover with 180 as resistance, I think this could go quite a bit lower, potentially back down to the 160s, 165 area. And then my level here, I have about a 150 level or so, which is basically the high back here from November of last year. Moving over to staples and discretionary, has got a bit of an everything sell here today. Don't love that, right? So we came in, hit the level 78.88. That was the level we were hoping for yesterday. Didn't quite get there. And then we touched it here today As soon as we touched that level, sold off really aggressively. If you include the overall sell here, this was a bit more, closer to 1.5% from that high to low. And then your next level, 77.50. Right now it's at 77.76. At this point, you have to assume this is going to break down, right? So then your next level would be that 75.40 area. That's kind of where I thought we were going to go ultimately anyway. And then we caught just a little bit of a bounce, probably just a dead cat bounce, probably going to go to that next area. And then looking at discretionaries here. At this point, it looks like we're probably going to touch that trend. Got support at the level, 235.85 is my level. Touch that level, caught a little bit of a bounce. We'll see if that matters. Amazon has been selling here, and that's why discretionaries are going lower. You also did have Tesla moving lower here today, so makes sense why this is selling a little bit. Really would like to see it hold this area if it's going to hold. Otherwise, if it cuts through here, 55 EMA is likely that next zone, right around that 229, 230 area. Moving over to breadth. Breadth continues to fall off here. 20-day still in this kind of 3660 area, really not breaking structure here, but 50-day looks significantly worse. You can see that gap down through the level of that 5281 area, and now you're falling not quite below the low here from 1 August, but it does seem like this is likely to go to that 40 area. This has continued to kind of deteriorate here, and I think this will probably go a little bit more. Doesn't mean that stocks have to go with it, but ultimately this means to me, once we get that rally, it'll likely give us a full topping pattern, and that could ultimately lead to some lower lows after that. Moving over to the dollar. Dollar loved the data here today. Strong GDP numbers, good jobs market means strong dollar, and the dollar did get that continuation here. Big up move, consolidation, big up move. Should look for at least one more out of that, off of that 3 push consolidation style of trading. I think that's likely what we'll get here. And then that 144 EMA, probably around that 99.44 area. We'll see what happens after that, but super bullish. I think this will continue to be pretty bullish here, and this should get another continuation on the dollar. Moving over to bonds, J&K kind of fell off a cliff here down to that 97.69 area. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. Looks like that's going to fall just a little bit more. Kind of surprising. I thought that would be a little bit more risk on with the good data, but TLT caught a bounce in this consolidation through a wick to VWAP. Want to see that continue higher. Been bullish on that for a long time. Seems to be holding here, and I do suspect that'll go kind of that next area. 92.82 is my next level. Moving over to the VIX. VIX continues to curl up here, throwing wicks, but not really moving a ton higher. Still think this will probably touch 1850 before it's all said and done. We haven't touched that yet. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish, so still expecting this to go, again, short term, still looking for some bullishness in equities. So maybe this turns down first, gives you a higher low setup, and then we bounce, maybe get a big wick to that area, and then we'll see what happens. But either way, I do think this will go higher over the next couple of weeks. But in the short term, I'm looking for a bounce in equities, so this should turn a little bit lower. Moving over to my accounts, I just continued to hold this position here, rolled out to 242 for tomorrow. Got a very small credit on that, sitting at $2.72 credit on these now. Obviously, some of that is just some of the losses that are baked into these puts at this point, but I'm expecting a little bit of a bounce tomorrow. Ultimately, I think this will go to kind of 244 area, and I'll be able to take in a pretty good amount of profits on those ultimately, but for now it definitely looks not super great. But got that double bottom, looking for a bounce tomorrow, maybe a 2-day bounce. We'll see what happens. Either way, looking for some slightly bullish price action, and then we'll see if we get that topping pattern or if we get the continuation to some new higher highs. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of the GDP numbers and the jobs numbers. Why did we go lower on a day where we got such strong data about the economy? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.